All right, everyone, welcome back. You ready to dive in? Today, we're going deep, really deep, like questioning the very foundations of physics deep.
Yeah, this one's going to be interesting.
So we've got this text file, seriousphysics.txt, written by, well, let's just call him a bit of a maverick physicist. They've been doing their own thing, their own research for like over 20 years now. And they're taking aim at some pretty fundamental stuff. I mean, we're talking about the definitions of number, infinity, continuity, the kind of things most physicists just take for granted.
It's really a critique of the foundational definitions in math and physics.
And that's what we're going to be exploring today. What are these critiques and what could they mean for how we think about science? You with me?
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
Okay, so first, a little bit more about our author, right?
Yeah.
They're not just some random person with a keyboard. They've got serious chops, been doing this physics thing for decades, like I said.
Right. And they're pretty upfront about feeling like the questions they've been asking, these really fundamental questions, haven't been given the attention they deserve.
One of the most fascinating things is this idea that our current scientific models, the ones we consider to be like the gold standard, might actually be just one perspective on nature.
It's a mind-bending thought, isn't it? I mean, we've got general relativity, which is fantastic for describing things on a large scale, planets, stars, galaxies.
And then we have quantum field theory, which is great for explaining the behavior of those tiny particles, but it has its own issues.
Exactly. Quantum field theory describes the universe in terms of these interacting fields, and particles are just like ripples in those fields. It's given us incredible insights, but it doesn't quite mesh with general relativity. They seem to be speaking different languages almost.
So what are they saying? That these models, the ones we've built our whole understanding of the universe on, are somehow wrong.
Not necessarily wrong, but maybe incomplete. They're suggesting that there's a deeper level of reality, a machinery that underlies everything.
Machinery, that's an interesting way to put it. So our current models, they're kind of like, I don't know, seeing the shadow of something, but not the actual thing itself.
That's a great analogy. They're suggesting that general relativity and quantum field theory are both valid descriptions, but only within their own limited domains. They're like different facets of a much larger, more complex gem.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see what they're getting at. So how do we even begin to understand this deeper level, this machinery?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. They argue that we need to go back to the very basics, to the foundations of mathematics itself. They pose three really fundamental questions. What is the definition of a number? What is the definition of infinity? And what is the definition of continuity?
Wow. I mean, those sound like pretty simple questions, like 1, 2, 3, infinity,
Yeah, they seem simple, but they actually touch on some of the deepest mysteries in mathematics. And it turns out that these seemingly basic concepts are not so simple after all. The idea of infinity, for example, it's incredibly difficult to wrap our heads around.
I guess you're right. Like, what does it even mean for something to be infinite? It just keeps going and going forever.
And then there's continuity. It's this idea that something can change smoothly without any gaps or jumps. But in the real world, everything seems to be made up of discrete, separate things.
So how do we reconcile those two ideas,
Yeah.
The smooth and continuous versus the separate and discrete?
That's the challenge. And they're suggesting that maybe, just maybe, our current understanding of these fundamental mathematical concepts is what's holding us back from grasping that deeper machinery of nature.
Okay, so we need to rethink the very building blocks of math in order to understand the universe, like on a deeper level.
That's the essence of their argument. They believe that by developing a more robust, maybe even revolutionary understanding of these core mathematical concepts, we might unlock the door to this more complete picture of reality.
Man, that's pretty wild. Another thing that really struck me about this document was the author's plea to the scientific community. They're basically saying, hey, let's focus on genuine scientific inquiry. Let's not get bogged down by worries about reputation or academic politics.
Yeah, they make a really powerful point. They argue that when we prioritize status over curiosity, when we're more concerned with protecting our reputations than with exploring new ideas, we actually hinder scientific progress.
Exactly. And it's kind of sad because, I mean, shouldn't science be about, following the evidence wherever it leads, even if it leads to some uncomfortable or unconventional conclusions?
Absolutely. And, history is full of examples of scientists who were ridiculed or dismissed for their ideas, only to be proven right later on.
Okay, so let's get specific. What are these critiques? Well, in terms of math, they've got three main questions. What is a number, really? What is infinity? And what is continuity? They're suggesting that the way we currently define these things might actually be flawed, and that these flaws could be holding back scientific progress.
It's like imagine building a skyscraper on a foundation with cracks, you know?
Exactly. And then on the physics side, the big question is, what is the complete machinery that is nature? They're basically arguing that there might be a deeper level of explanation for why the universe works the way it does, a deeper level than what our current models provide.
And it's not like this is just some abstract philosophical debate. They're suggesting that this could lead to actual practical breakthroughs in our understanding of, well, everything.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. They lay out two paths forward for physics. Path one, keep doing what we're doing. Keep refining those existing models, pushing them further, seeing what we can squeeze out of them.
Which, to be fair, has gotten us pretty far already.
Totally. But then there's path two, the more radical one. And that's to explore this idea of a new machinery underlying nature. Like, what if there's a whole new mathematical framework out there just waiting to be discovered?
One that could potentially explain things even more deeply and completely than our current theories.
Exactly. And the author's point is, why not do both? Why not keep pushing the boundaries of what we know while also staying open to the possibility of something completely new and different?
Makes you wonder if we're sometimes so focused on the details that we miss the bigger picture, right?
Yeah, like maybe we need to take a step back and ask those really big fundamental questions again, even if they seem basic.
Because sometimes going back to the basics can lead to the biggest breakthroughs. And, thinking about all this, it really raises a question for you, the listener. If you had to define number, infinity, or continuity, how would you do it?
Whoa, yeah. Mind blown. Like, we use these words all the time, but do we actually know what they mean?
It's harder than you think, really.
So, suddenly you realize you've been speaking a language your whole life, but never really understood the grammar.
Uh-huh. Yeah, kind of. But that's the beauty of science, isn't it? There's always more to learn, always deeper to go.
Totally. And our author here, they're really issuing a challenge to the entire physics community. They're saying, let's have an open, honest, rigorous discussion about these fundamental questions.
Let's not shy away from them just because they're difficult or because they might challenge the status quo.
Let's let the scientific method, not any kind of personal biases or political pressures, be our guide.
Boom. Mic drop.
Right. And whether or not you agree with everything this physicist is saying, I think we can all agree that this kind of critical thinking, this willingness to question everything, is what drives science forward.
100%.
So I don't know about you, but I'm walking away from this deep dive with a whole new perspective.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that even in a field as advanced as physics, there are still fundamental mysteries to be solved.
Yeah, and maybe even whole new ways of thinking about the universe waiting to be discovered.
And who knows, maybe one of you listening will be the one to make that next big breakthrough. Think about it. What everyday examples can you find that help you illustrate number, infinity, or continuity? Keep those brain muscles working. And until next time, keep exploring.
Keep questioning.